We all have dreams, but dreams by their very nature can be difficult to achieve. That's where Access Credit Union comes in. Whether it's going to college, owning a car, or building your dream home, your local credit union can help you to fulfill your dreams. Access Credit Union, funding dreams for over 50 years.
Close your eyes and pull like a dog.
And a new Irish record for Phil Healy, 22.99.
Christy Cooney hands over the Sam Maguire Cup to Graham Canty, Cork All Ireland champions for the 7th time ever.
Hello and welcome to our second Special Olympics bonus Star Sport podcast. My name is Jack McCarran of the Southern Star and I'm joined as always by Star Sport editor Kieran McCarthy. Before we kick things off, I'd just like to give a gentle reminder to our listeners and viewers to please rate, review and subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify and YouTube. The Star Sport podcast is brought to you by Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, funding dreams for over 50 years. What a week it's been so far for the West Cork contingent in Tokyo, and there's plenty more to come. On today's show, we're going to briefly reflect on the opening performances of the Skibbereen rowers, and we're also going to look ahead to Phil Healy's Olympic debut. The Ballineen Bullet will make her first appearance at the games on the track on Friday, and we'll be joined by her sister Joan to preview all of that. And now, Kieran, before we touch on the rowers, I know you're always keen to give yourself praise, but as they say, self-praise is no praise. So here is some praise from the lads over at Second Captains for your Olympics special magazine that's still in shops as we speak.
We're going to chat to Kieran McCarthy, who wrote something in the water, how Skibbereen Rowing Club conquered the world. Kieran's also sports editor of the Southern Star newspaper, and they've gone big this week, Murph. Big.
It's actually unbelievable. Because they have Phil Healy as well from West Cork. So West Cork have 7 competitors in the Olympics this year.
Yeah.
Which
plus Dominic Casey is the coach.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of just, it blows my mind a little, you know? And I just think it's so amazing that in a small local paper like the Southern Star has the chance to celebrate 7 Olympians plus Duncan Casey Dominic Casey in an edition of their paper 2 days before the Tokyo Olympics are taking over Tokyo, and this is in the Southern Star, and they have every right to say they're taking over Tokyo.
Bloody right.
I think it's just absolutely amazing. So I'm super excited to talk to Kieran a little later on, because you know there are a lot of local newspapers out there, and a lot of local newspaper supplements about Munster finals and Ulster finals and All Ireland finals and stuff like that. But I mean, this is the Olympics, you know. This is the Olympics, and that is an unbelievable achievement.
It's very cool. Yeah, Kieran's going to be on with the editor of the Journal.ie and Olympics superfan Sinead O'Carroll.
Okay, Kieran, before we hear from Joan and preview Phil's races at the games, let's quickly reflect on the opening weekend for our Skibbereen rowers. Paul O'Donovan and Fintan McCarthy were in action. Aoife Casey was in action with Margaret Cremen, and Emily Hegarty was in the women's 4. We know they done well, but maybe just contextualise how well they all performed.
The Skib Olympics started off really well in Tokyo last weekend. Paul and Fintan McCarthy are favourites for gold in the lightweight men's double for a reason, and they showed that in their heat. They were so impressive, so dominant, and they eased right through to the AB semi-final. For Aoife Casey and Max Cremen, they had to go through the repechage to get to the AB semi-final of the women's lightweight double. But for them to get to that AB semi-final puts them in the top 12 of the Olympics. So that's an incredible achievement for such a young crew. We've spoken about them before. They're both only 22 years of age. I think Aoife is the youngest Skibbereen representative at the Olympics. So this is a huge learning experience for them. And the one positive is they're getting better all the time. Even from their heat to their rep, you could see the improvement. So if they can keep on that upward curve, there's big years ahead for them. And then, of course, Emily Hegarty in that Irish women's 4, they got to the A final at the Olympics. They're a crew as well. that's momentum behind them this year. They were second at the Europeans. They won the final Olympic qualification regatta. They got to the A final, so they're right in the medal race. So the Skip Olympics in Tokyo going quite well.
Absolutely. And as I mentioned, we'll have a full reflection podcast about the rowers later in the week, where we'll talk to people involved, hopefully, and have a bit of fun looking back on what will have hopefully been the greatest week in Skibbereen sporting history. But for now, we're going to switch our attention to the track, and in particular the Ballineen Bullet, Phil Healy, who gets her games underway on Friday. And we're going to catch up with her sister Joan in just a moment. Joan is, of course, an international level sprinter in her own right, so who better to get insight from than Joan? But Kieran, before we do hear from Joan, could you maybe give the listeners an idea of when they can expect to see Phil in action? When should we be setting our alarms? What are the dates for our diary?
So Phil kicks off our Olympics with the mixed 4x400 meter relay. The heats are on this Friday. We can all tune in for that on Friday, and then we'll see how Phil and that Irish team gets on there. And she'll be on then on Monday to the heats of the 200 meter individual. And if it goes well there, she'll have the semi-finals later that day. It's a pretty busy schedule coming up for Phil over the next couple of days. But talking to her coach Shane McCormick a couple of weeks ago on the podcast, he says she's well able for it. So she's ready for the big dance. She's ready to go.
Lovely stuff. Well, let's waste no more time and let's go now and speak to Phil's sister, Joan Healy.
Delighted now to be joined on the podcast by Joan Healy, the big sister of Phil, who races into action in Tokyo this Friday. Welcome to the podcast, Joan.
Thanks a million for having me, Kieran.
Must be a very exciting time for the Healy family.
It is, yeah. We've been excited for a while, but now this week she's moved to the Olympic Village now, so now it's real now and it's happening this week. She's finally going to hit the track. So yeah, it is getting very exciting now.
Have you had much contact or interaction with Phil the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, in fairness to her now, she's on to us all. Shane as well, they're on to us pretty much every day. In fairness. We've gotten the full tour around the Team Ireland base camp, holding camp. And then today we got a great tour of the Olympic Village then as well.
Absolutely brilliant. Because before the athletics team moved to the Olympic Village this week, they spent a couple of weeks, and I'm not even going to try and pronounce the name of the place because I just mess it up.
Kukroy.
That's the spot. They spent 2 weeks there, was it? So what was the plan there? So was it just acclimatization, get used to everything?
Yeah, so basically you kind of have to work off the daylight hours type thing. When you're going over to that side of the world, you're obviously losing 8 hours basically, plus all the travel then on top of it. So you kind of have to build yourself back into the training, and you have to slowly build the intensity as kind of the days go on. So probably close to when they were probably more like a week outside there, they were probably starting to ramp training back up a little bit more, something similar to what she would have done when she was at home. But at this stage the work is done. When she left Dublin, the work was done. So anything that she's been doing in the last few weeks is just sharpening the blade, keeping things ticking over and just keeping her sharp.
She must be fierce excited to actually land in the Olympic Village this week, because it all becomes so real then.
Absolutely. And it looks unbelievable.
And how is she a couple of days out from the start of a very busy schedule for her? Is she in good form? Is she looking forward to it?
She's in great form, mighty form. Phil isn't exactly the type that, gets carried away by the size of an occasion. She knows this has been a dream of hers for a very long time, and it started to become a reality there in the last year or so. So to have all that work put in, she's not going to be someone who's going to get taken away by the occasion and then let it affect in the performance. She's out there to give her performance, and I have absolutely no doubt, and that's what she'll do.
because like we've talked before on this podcast, we've written in the Star, like Phil is making history by becoming the first Irish woman to ever compete in 3 events at the same Olympics. And first up on Friday is the mixed 4x400 meter relay. Just Joan, like Phil is known as an individual sprinter. Is it hard or easy then to kind of pop into the team environment for a relay?
Do you know what? It's actually a nice change. I've been being on the relay myself. There's a difference. I really don't even know how to explain it. Because obviously, you're going to try and put absolutely everything into your own individual performance, but when you go out onto the track that anything that happens, it's your doing, be it positive or negative. So when you go and you line up as part of a relay, you're there with 3 other members of a team, and you've all really got to work together to get the most positive outcome. And there's 3 other people depending on your performance, and you're also depending on 3 other people's performance to get where you want to be. So there's probably a little bit more pressure when it's a relay, really. But at the same time, it's a really exciting pressure, it's definitely something that she would relish. And they're a little bit of fun anyway.
And we're looking at this relay, and there's a chance of getting to an Olympic final here, because there's 16 teams. It's two heats of 8, and is it the top 4 from each go through?
It'll be something like that. Look, it would be absolutely amazing if they did make a final. It's probably a little bit to Ireland's advantage, the fact that the relay is first. I know people it's the first year the 4x4 mixed is in an Olympic event. But to have it at the start of the program is not something you would usually see, and probably people think it's taking away really from people's individual events, and to a point, it is. But I think it could kind of work to Ireland's favour in a way, in that, probably the bigger teams probably aren't going to field their A team for a heat, because those same athletes are probably maybe medal hopes in maybe the 200 or the 400. So it all depends on, the lane draw, the heat that they're in, a little bit of luck needs to happen as well. But it would be a great thing to see. But the fact that they've made it out there, and it's the one event that they actually, they qualified for the Olympics. You didn't get in there on rankings; they actually qualified for it. So it's going to be great on Friday to see them all line up.
Like you said, Joan, like you've ran in relay teams before, you know what it's all about. What's key to a good relay then? Is it the handover of the baton? Like, how important is that? Like, what's the key components to making sure you go as well as you can in a relay?
Well, in the 4x4, the same pressure on the baton changes isn't there that there will be in a 4x1. A 4x1, there's split-second changes, and if you mess it up, you've lost your race. So there's a little bit more, I don't want to say room for error, but a little bit more time to play around with there. So the most important thing is their own individual leg. Now I know there's no fans in the stadium, but at the same time, it's your leg. You realize, oh my God, I'm here in an Olympic heat. So I think the most important thing for each one of them is to just not get carried away with the occasion, and to concentrate on running their leg. We've seen, in previous championships where, someone gets the baton and they take off like a bat out of hell for the first 200, and then they're swimming home. The lactic sniper is out. So we don't really want to see something like that. And these four guys on the team, they have a lot of experience running internationally, and they've been well coached. So I think the most important thing for them is to keep their composure, but at the same time, they need a bit of boldness as well.
And with Shane McCormick, Phil's coach, on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, and he says whatever happens in the relay, he said at least it's a good run through for Phil ahead of Monday when she's out in the 200 meters. So she'll get into the stadium, she'll see the kind of how it all works inside there. So you'd hope that would stand for her before she goes into her individual event, start with the 200 on Monday.
Absolutely. I know, people are saying that it's very hot out there. Phil loves the heat. And I think she has adjusted quite well to it. When they got out there pretty early, I know that she did, get her sleep and stuff back on track fairly quickly. So something like the heat and stuff, and I know, with the 400 and what, it can be quite hard. But at the same time, Phil, we've seen her from European indoors. Phil is well used to running rounds. And she's definitely given herself a tough task anyway at these Olympics, doing 3 events, and they're so close together. But no, being out there on the Friday and then coming out there again on the, well, for her it'll probably be the Monday morning. They'll definitely stand to her. All these things, like warm up areas, going through the different call rooms, coming down into the tunnel, going into the stadium, setting up things like, baskets and blocks and all that sort of stuff. You'd actually be surprised as you go from championship to championship how they vary at times. So having done all that on the Friday, it'll definitely stand her.
Like we've said a few times, like Phil has a busy schedule there with the 200 in on the Monday, and then the 400 is it the Tuesday or the Wednesday, but it's shortly after as well.
Yeah.
The Tuesday. So what can she do then, Joan, to like rest and recover in between the days?
Yeah, so when she'll finish the 200 heats on Monday morning, and then the 200 semi is on Monday night. We don't know. It all depends on what kind of a heat she's in. It all depends on how well she recovers from Friday. The possibility is always there, and I would never bet against her to make a semi-final. But at the same time, she could run a national record out of this world, and it might still not qualify her for a semi-final, and that's the standard. So if she comes away from the heats and she doesn't progress to the semis, the aim there is just getting back to the hotel or the village as soon as possible, getting some food into her. I know she'll probably get into the recovery boats that we've often seen her photographed in. At least she won't be sitting in the back of a van at this time. So she'll probably get into those, probably maybe, an ice bath or something like that. And Phil being Phil, the priority there will be trying to get in a bit of a nap, really.
You made a great point there, Joan, about if hopefully she'll get through the semi-final, let's say the 200. We have Rob Heffernan talking in this week's Southern Star, just chatting to him about Phil, and he said it's important that people recognise for an Irish sprinter to get to the Olympics is an achievement in itself, because when you're talking about sprinting, it's a global sport, and the depth of the field is incredible. Like Phil is up against the best in the world here, the very best in the world. So for her to be in this company in the first place just is a testament to her and shows the level that she's at. So to get to the Olympics is incredible. Like if she can get to semi-final in the 2 or the 4, like you're talking, that's a huge achievement.
Yeah. And it's hard, especially for people who kind of probably only maybe tune into the Olympics every 4 years. It's hard to get that understanding across. Sprinting, it's dominated by the Americans and the Jamaicans pretty much. Now Europe is coming along, especially with the likes of Dina Asher-Smith, and there's a few of the Dutch girls there and Polish girls as well. So it is coming along in Europe, but for Ireland, it's incredibly hard to get onto a world stage as a sprinter. And we were just looking at some stats there last week, and well, first of all, the automatic qualifying time for Rio was something like 23:2. The automatic qualifying time for Tokyo was 22:8. So you have a massive drop there just by qualifying times. In Rio, the slowest time to get out of the heats and into a semi-final, I think, was 22:94. So you can see where it's going. It would be incredible if she managed to get a PB, and I think personally she'd be very happy to walk away from the track with a PB, knowing that she had given it her all. And if she didn't progress to the semis, obviously she would love to go there, but she's well able to put these things into context herself, and she knows the standard that she's up against.
What's your plans for the next couple of days? Will you watch the races? Will you go back home? Will you stay in Cork? Or what's the plan?
I'm probably up and down getting my second vaccine tomorrow, so I'll be down for a bit. I'm probably going to be back up here in Cork, because I don't know, is it because we have someone in the Olympics this time, but I nearly started crying watching the opening ceremony last week. And I would have watched every opening ceremony since 2008. And, seeing, the rowers going, the swimmers, the boxers all week, I'm catching up on them all every morning when I wake up, and like you're listening to their interviews, and I do have a sense of how hard it is to get there. And then for some people who might have been disappointed in their performance, and your body just didn't do what you wanted it to do on the day. It is, you do feel that emotion when you're listening to them, and the same when they do so well. So because I'm like that now, before she's even started, I don't think I could be anywhere near my family when she's actually running. I'm that type anyway. I kind of, even if she's not in a race, I prefer to watch the athletics by myself, really, because I don't just, tune in for the 100-meter final or the 200s. I watch every round of every event. So yeah, I'm going to have a busy week and a half there now, and I'll be dipping in back and forth, and back home and whatnot, but probably for her races I'll stay up here in Cork.
And like I said earlier, Joan, it's the excitement levels back down home with the whole family. Like, they must be reaching fever pitches. The closer we get to Friday, the closer we get to seeing Phil in action in that Olympic Stadium in Tokyo. Like, kind of, you're talking about a goosebump moment for anyone who's ever seen.
It is. Anyone. Yeah, anytime I talk about it, like, the hairs on my arms start to stand. It is getting very exciting, and the village and the town of Bandon as well, and all the way down, they're really getting into it and decorating with the flags and the posters, and it's lovely to see, really. Oh,
it's brilliant. Like, even the support I saw, I think Shane put up on Instagram there a picture that must be somewhere around Bandon or in the ski, and it's a best of luck, Phil, run as if you're late for mass or something like that.
Late for mass, exactly.
Yeah, something like that. Absolutely brilliant. But it just
some
shows
people have been very creative, in fairness.
Everyone has got behind her, and we'll all be cheering her on Friday and early next week as well. Thank you so much, Joan, again, for your time.
No problem.
We'll be thinking of you on Friday when we see Phil in action. So fingers crossed for Phil.
Fingers crossed, exactly.
Brilliant. Thanks, Joan.
Hi, I'm Fiona Kangataran, and I'm an illustrator from Kinsale. During lockdown, wanting to keep myself busy and just having a mad year, I felt like I needed to do something different, and I actually went back and picked up an old hobby where it left off, and it was a passion of mine since I was a kid. It was drawing. I made personalised cards for each and every one of my friends, as each and every birthday and celebration and event that got cancelled, postponed, or just something that we couldn't meet up in person to celebrate. And I wanted it to mark something special, that not just that I remembered the date, but just that I see them and I love them and I care, and of course I miss them so much. And I think we're all going through that all at the same time. And so when I shared those images online, it resonated with so many people, and I didn't realize the positive impact that it would have. And it was really powerful, and it was this immediate validation that I was doing something right, that this was a sign of where I should be taking my own career. And then when Access Credit Union approached me about their Funding Dreams campaign, it just felt like fate. And they wanted their community to be represented. They wanted people to be seen, and they wanted to bring people together. And that's what the credit union does. And I just couldn't be prouder to be a part of this project. And at the same time, it's actually made my dream come true of being a paid illustrator. So I couldn't be more grateful that it's going in this direction.
Now, quickly before we wrap up, just some housekeeping I want to tick off. If you're looking for the best location to keep up to date with all the West Cork athletes in action at the Tokyo Olympics, just go to www.thesouthernstarTV/Olympics. It's our special Olympics mini site, and we have wall-to-wall coverage of the rowers and, of course, Phil Healy. There's also the small matter of our Taking Over Tokyo Olympics magazine, which is still available to purchase. So if you've missed out on this, which what I can only describe as a keeper, this is something that you will want to keep in your house for years to come, so you can reflect back on what looks like could be the greatest week of West Cork sport ever. I hope I'm not over egging it there, but that magazine is still available. If you can't make it to a shop, you can purchase it online. Just go to www.thesouthernstarTV/. e-paper. You can read that magazine for less than €2 per week when you subscribe, so you don't want to miss out on that. Inside Ireland's Greatest Rowing Club is still on our website, and it's doing some good numbers. We're getting great feedback, so that basically tells the story of how Skibbereen Rowing Club became the club that has produced 6 Olympians and 1 Olympic coach. So if you haven't seen that, I advise going on to southernstar.ie/Olympics again, or just searching for the Southern Star on YouTube. And obviously the Southern Star is going to be out this Thursday, and there's another cracking sports section with loads of Olympic coverage, Munster final fallout, and everything else you could imagine. So if you can't make it to the shops on Thursday to pick up a copy of that, just go to www.southernstar.ie/e-paper again. Now I think that's my shilling done for today, Kieran. Is there anything I've missed out on? Oh, and of course, we're going to have an Olympics podcast on Thursday where we'll be reflecting on the performances of the Skibbereen rowers. Hopefully we'll get some people on with us to do that, and we'll tell you more about that later in the week. But that'll be Thursday, so Rowing Podcast Thursday. Our Munster Final Fallout podcast is out right now, and this is, of course, our athletics podcast. So, Kieran, I'm going to faint because I've spoken so much. Is there anything I've forgotten?
Well, it just shows how busy West Cork sport is right now. 3 podcasts day after day after day. It's an Olympic effort from the Southern Star sports team, and it's been more than matched by our local heroes over in Tokyo. So tune in, spread the word, like and share, and let everyone listen and join in on what is a phenomenal time for West Cork sport.
Yeah, lovely stuff, Kieran. As always, thanks for listening to the Star Sport podcast. If you enjoy these shows, and we really mean it this time now, please make sure to rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. By the time the next Olympics come around, me and Kieran have set our sights on being hired by NBC to cover it for them. So the more 5-star reviews we get, the more likely they're going to come calling with big $1 million contracts. I can already smell the green. Slán Tamil.